The explosive breaching charge detonates. A massive, invisible wave of overpressure punches you squarely in the chest, momentarily sucking the oxygen out of your lungs and filling the hallway with pulverized concrete, fiberglass, and the sharp, metallic taste of cordite. You do not flinch. You do not blink. You step fluidly through the shattered doorframe into the thick, gray smoke. In the next 3/10 of a second, your brain must calculate the exact dimensions of the room, identify the structural corners, map the dead space behind the furniture, and distinguish a terrified civilian hostage from an armed combatant holding an assault rifle. You are moving at a sprint, carrying 60 pounds of ballistic plates, ammunition, and night vision gear, and you are pulling the trigger of a short-barreled rifle loaded with live 5.56 millimeter ammunition. Your teammate is moving exactly 14 inches to your right, firing his own weapon directly past your ear. If your geometry is off by 2 degrees, or if your cognitive processing speed lags by a single hundredth of a second, an innocent person dies, your teammate dies, or you die. Stand to welcome back to the tame room. Grab a seat. If you are newly assigned to this operational grid, let me give you the baseline briefing. I am a retired officer from the United States Special Operations community. I spent the better part of 2 decades executing direct action, hostage rescue, and unconventional warfare in denied territories that will never officially appear on your evening news. Due to the active non-disclosure agreements I signed in windowless vaults at the Pentagon, my face remains redacted and my name is permanently off the grid. The military gave me a profound, lethal skill set, but it took its pound of flesh in return. My skeletal structure is held together by titanium hardware, my joints are degraded to bone on bone, and I carry the invisible weight of traumatic brain injuries. The Department of Veterans Affairs sends a disability check every month to offset the physical destruction, but I am not here to rattle a tin cup. I am an officer. I was raised to lead, and I firmly believe in working for my keep. This channel is built on a strictly enforced operational trade. I give you the raw, unfiltered, classified reality of modern warfare and elite tactical training. I break down the grueling psychology, the lethal physics, and the institutionalized violence that Hollywood directors and military recruiters will never expose you to. In exchange, I simply ask for your engagement. You hit the subscribe button, you smash the like button, and you drop a comment down below. That engagement feeds the YouTube algorithm. It keeps this channel airborne, and it allows me to stay fiercely independent while delivering this intelligence directly to you. If you can respect that trade, then lock and load. We have a highly kinetic, mathematically precise movement ahead of us today. Today, we are stripping away the cinematic illusions of urban combat. We are going to deconstruct the apex of infantry tactics. We are walking into the most unforgiving, high-stakes training environment ever devised by the United States military. We are going inside the killing house. When the civilian public watches a movie featuring a SWAT team or a military unit clearing a building, it looks like chaotic action. Guys are kicking down doors, screaming commands, spraying bullets in every direction, and diving behind couches for cover. It looks like an adrenaline-fueled bar fight with firearms. The reality of Tier 1 Close Quarters Battle, or CQB, is the exact opposite of a bar fight. It is not an action movie. It is a surgical, cold-blooded, high-speed mathematical equation solved with live ammunition. It is the absolute mastery of angles, physics, and human physiology. It requires a level of emotional detachment and cognitive processing speed that borders on the robotic. And to build that specific type of human machine, the Special Operations community utilizes a specialized structure known as the killing house. The concept of the killing house was originally pioneered by the British Special Air Service, the SAS, and perfected by the United States 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, widely known as Delta Force. The killing house is not a normal building. It is a massive multi-story modular ballistic bunker. The walls are not made of drywall and wood. They are constructed from high-density ballistic rubber, overlapping steel plates, and layers of tightly packed tires designed to absorb millions of rounds of live ammunition without allowing a single bullet to ricochet or penetrate into the next room. The layout of the house can be changed on a daily basis. Hallways can be lengthened, doors can be moved, and rooms can be reconfigured. Above the rooms, there are elevated catwalks covered in bulletproof glass where the instructors walk, looking directly down at the operators like scientists observing rats in a highly lethal maze. The air inside the killing house is heavy. It smells perpetually of burnt gunpowder, vaporized lead, and sweat. The acoustic environment is deafening. When 4 operators are firing short-barreled rifles indoors simultaneously, the concussive blast waves bounce off the rubber walls and compress against your skull. It is an environment designed to induce sensory overload, and it is in this environment that an operator must learn to do the math. Let us break down the geometry of CQB. It all begins at the most dangerous place on the modern battlefield, the threshold, the doorway. In tactical terminology, a doorway is known as the fatal funnel. A doorway is a brilliantly designed architectural choke point. It forces a human body to outline its entire silhouette against a contrasting background. It restricts movement to a single, predictable path, and it naturally draws the human eye. If there is a combatant inside a room waiting to defend it, his weapon is already pointed at the door. The fatal funnel is a magnet for lead. Therefore, the absolute first rule of close quarters battle is that you never, ever stop in the doorway. You do not pause to look around. You do not trip, you commit. Before the breach, the team lines up outside the door in a formation known as the stack. The stack is a living, breathing organism. Every man has a specific sector of fire and a specific geometric responsibility. The number 1 man is at the front. His job is the most terrifying. He is the first man through the door, and his life expectancy in a highly contested breach can be measured in fractions of a second. As the breach occurs, the number 1 man must immediately read the room. Rooms generally fall into 2 categories, center-fed or corner-fed. In a center-fed room, the door is in the middle of the wall, meaning there are deep, unseen corners on both the left and the right. In a corner-fed room, the door is flush against one wall, meaning there is only one deep corner to worry about. The moment the number 1 man crosses the threshold, he must aggressively drive the corner. He does not look straight ahead. He moves diagonally, sweeping his weapon and his eyes deep into the immediate corner of the room to clear the blind spot. This movement is not a casual walk. It is an explosive, violent step designed to get his body out of the fatal funnel and dominate the primary angle. The number 2 man is moving a fraction of a second behind him. As number 1 drives to the left corner, number 2 instantly reads that movement and drives to the right corner. They are creating a divergent path, splitting the room and forcing any hostile target inside to make a split-second decision about who to shoot first. This is called creating a tactical dilemma. By the time the hostile target decides which operator to shoot, he is already dead. Number 3 and number 4 flow into the room immediately behind them, filling the center gaps and establishing what are called points of domination. Within 2 seconds of the explosive breach, the 4-man team has flooded the room, collapsed all the angles, and established interlocking, overlapping fields of fire. Every square inch of the room is covered by the muzzle of a rifle. But moving into the room is only the kinetic part of the equation. The truly terrifying aspect of the killing house is the cognitive processing, the shoot or no-shoot decision. When you kick open a door in a war zone, the room is not filled with static paper targets holding guns. It is filled with chaos. There is smoke, there are strobe lights flashing, there is screaming. The room might contain a high-value terrorist leader holding a weapon. It might contain his terrified wife reaching for a cell phone. It might contain a teenager holding a broom handle. It might contain a hostage tied to a chair. The human brain operates on a cycle known as the OODA Loop: observe, orient, decide, act. For a normal, untrained civilian processing a complex, chaotic visual scene, orienting to the threat, making a conscious decision to use lethal force, and physically pulling the trigger takes roughly 3/4 of a second to a full second. In close quarters battle, 1 second is an eternity. If you take a full second to process a room, the guy with the AK-47 has already emptied half his magazine into your chest plates. The training inside the killing house is designed to compress that OODA loop until it functionally disappears. Operators run the house thousands upon thousands of times. They fire hundreds of thousands of rounds a year. They do this until the process of target discrimination bypasses the conscious, thinking part of the brain and becomes deeply embedded muscle memory. When an operator enters the room, his brain is scanning for microindicators. He is not looking at faces, he is looking at hands. The hands kill you. He is scanning for the geometry of a weapon, the posture of aggression, the tension in the shoulders. If he sees a weapon, he does not think about shooting. The visual stimulus of the threat bypasses the conscious mind, traveling directly to the motor cortex, and the trigger is pulled. 2 rounds to the thoracic cavity, 1 round to the cranial vault. The target drops before the operator is even consciously aware that he has fired. This leads to the most dangerous and critical element of the killing house: the element that separates regular infantry from special operations, the element of trust. In a dynamic entry, you are firing live ammunition inside a confined concrete box filled with your best friends. The geometry of the room dictates that your teammate will constantly be moving across your field of vision. You are engaging targets that are standing literally inches away from the heads and bodies of your brothers. Let me paint this picture for you. You are the number 2 man. You breach the door and drive hard to the right corner. Deep in that corner is a paper target representing an armed terrorist. But standing exactly 2 feet in front of that target is your number 1 man who just drove into the left corner and is engaging his own sector. You must raise your rifle, track the target, and fire a burst of 5.56 ammunition that travels at 3,000 feet per second, passing within 6 inches of your teammate's helmet. There is no room for hesitation. There is no room for a flinch. You cannot pull your shot. You have to trust your zero. You have to trust your grip. And more importantly, your teammate has to trust you. He hears the supersonic crack of your bullet snapping past his ear, and he does not duck. He does not flinch. He trusts your geometry absolutely. To build this level of psychotic trust, the Tier 1 units conduct an exercise that defies civilian comprehension. During the final phases of the killing house qualification, the instructors will replace the cardboard hostage targets with actual human beings. Specifically, they will use the operators themselves. You will sit in a chair in the corner of a dark room. You will have no weapon, no helmet, and no body armor. You will simply sit there playing the role of the hostage. The breach charge will detonate, blowing the door in. Your teammates will flood into the room in the dark. You will see the infrared lasers dancing across the walls. And then the room will explode with live gunfire. Your teammates will engage the hostile targets placed strategically inches away from your head and your chest. You will feel the concussive blast of the rifles. You will feel the hot brass casings hitting your face. You will smell the vaporized lead. You sit perfectly still. You do not close your eyes. You watch your brother's work. If an operator shoots the hostage, he is instantly removed from the unit. If an operator shoots a teammate, he is removed from the unit. The standard is absolute, unforgiving perfection. In the killing house, a 99% passing grade means that somebody's wife is getting a folded flag. Only 100% is acceptable. This level of perfection demands a physical and psychological toll that the human body was never evolved to pay. You cannot fire millions of rounds inside a rubber room without consequences. The operators breathe in toxic levels of vaporized lead, antimony, and barium from the primers of the ammunition. Their blood lead levels skyrocket, causing neurological issues, joint pain, and chronic fatigue. More devastating is the invisible damage caused by the breaching charges. Every time a mechanical or explosive breach is executed, a wave of overpressure hits the operator. It is a concussive shockwave that travels through the skull and impacts the soft tissue of the brain. When you do this 10, 20, 30 times a day for years on end, you suffer from repetitive mild traumatic brain injury. Microtears form in the white matter of the brain. Operators begin to suffer from chronic insomnia, severe migraines, short-term memory loss, and aggressive mood swings. The military calls it breacher's syndrome. It is the silent killer of the special operations community. The operators are literally destroying their own brains to master the geometry of the room. The psychological weight is equally crushing. The killing house rewires your nervous system. You become hypervigilant. You cannot walk into a civilian restaurant without immediately calculating the fatal funnel of the front door, identifying the secondary exits, and assessing the hands of every patron sitting in the booths. You stop looking at the world as a place to live, and you start looking at it as a complex series of angles and potential threats. It makes you a peerless apex predator in combat, but it makes you a highly alienated, isolated individual in a civilian living room. So why do we do it? Why do we subject the best men this country has to offer to a training environment that systematically poisons their blood, rattles their brains, and fractures their civilian lives? Because the enemy gets a vote. Because out there in the dark corners of the world, there are men who have barricaded themselves inside concrete buildings with hostages, explosives, and automatic weapons. Because when diplomacy fails, when the negotiations break down, and when innocent lives are seconds away from execution, the United States government does not call the police. They call the men who have mastered the geometry of death. They need men who can kick open the door of hell, process the chaos in hundredths of a second, and deliver surgical, overwhelming violence with absolute precision. The killing house is not a torture chamber. It is a forge. It is the only place on earth where you can take a highly trained soldier and hammer him into a precision instrument of national policy. And that brings me back to you watching this debrief. You will likely never have to put on 60 pounds of body armor, strap night vision goggles to your helmet, and run into a dark room filled with armed combatants. You will probably never have to trust a teammate to shoot a rifle 6 inches from your face. But the fundamental principles of close quarters battle apply directly to the psychological architecture of your own life. Life is going to force you into your own fatal funnels. You are going to face moments of crisis, a financial collapse, a health diagnosis, a shattered relationship, a career failure. That crisis is the doorway. The natural human instinct when faced with a crisis is to pause. We want to stop in the doorway. We want to look around, to hesitate, to feel sorry for ourselves, to analyze the unfairness of the situation. The lesson from the killing house is that hesitating in the doorway is a death sentence. The doorway is where the enemy's weapons are pointed. The crisis is where the damage is done. When you find yourself in the fatal funnel of your life, you cannot stop. You must commit. You must violently, aggressively step through the crisis and drive your corner. You have to dominate the angle, process the information immediately. What is the threat? What is the obstacle? What are the resources I have right now? Separate the emotion from the geometry. Make the decision and pull the trigger on your actions. Furthermore, the concept of slicing the pie applies to how you handle overwhelming problems. When an operator approaches a door, he doesn't just run blindly into the room. He stays on the outside, slowly shifting his angle, clearing the room one thin slice at a time before he ever steps across the threshold. When you're facing a massive, seemingly insurmountable problem in your life, do not rush blindly into the center of it where you will be overwhelmed by the crossfire. Stand back, slice the pie. Break the massive problem down into manageable, narrow angles. Defeat one small piece of the problem, shift your angle, defeat the next small piece. Keep moving, keep clearing your sector until the entire problem is dominated. And finally, you must evaluate the people standing in your stack. Look at the people you surround yourself with, your friends, your business partners, your family. In the killing house, if the number 2 man doesn't do his job, the number 1 man dies. Your survival depends entirely on the competence, the courage, and the absolute trust of the people moving into the room behind you. Are the people in your life willing to cover your blind spots? Do you trust them to take the shot when it matters? And more importantly, are you competent enough and disciplined enough for them to trust you? If you are moving through the